Yes, Mom. Alexander mumbled absently into the phone, not paying attention to the conversation. Yes, sure, Mom. Yes. Alexander sat hunched over at his desk, in front of his quietly humming computer, trying to do two things at once. He wanted to keep the thread of the dialogue with his mother and promptly edit and publish the news that he had been working on for half an hour. Usually, such work took the journalist, who was a real professional, about 10 minutes, even if he was not in a hurry. But now, he was reading the same line for the fourth time without understanding the point. Obviously, Alexander was not good at multitasking, because at some point, there was a silence on the phone, foreshadowing a hurricane. Are you not listening to me again? The woman at the other end of the line was suddenly very angry. What do you mean, yes, Alex? I'm telling you that someone was rude to me in the drugstore, and you say, yes, Mom? Seriously? Mom, don't you understand that I'm at work? And the line at the drugstore or post office or grocery store you didn't like is the least of my worries. The young man replied. How dare you speak to me this way? The woman instantly coined her favorite phrase, and her voice trembled suspiciously. Are you saying I'm a burden to you, right? Mommy, Alex started in a soothing tone. Please, just try to understand that I have to work, to pay the bills, the mortgage. Sometimes I don't even have time to go to lunch. What is so urgent that it couldn't wait until the end of the day? I can visit you tonight, and we'll have tea and cake, and you can tell me about your incredible stories. About the neighbors, about the skyrocketing prices of bread and cheese, about the incompetent therapist in the hospital, about the weather-related blood pressure spikes, or whatever else you want to tell me. Alex immediately regretted what he had said. Though he hadn't seen his mother's face, he can imagine her pursing her lips resentfully in response to his suggestion. Sure, Alex, that would be nice, she grumbled after a half minute of significant silence. Except you don't visit me. You've forgotten the way to your home, the place where you grew up, where you took your first steps. We got this apartment because your father served in the army, and he and I were among the first people to move in. Alex almost groaned. Would he have to listen to their family history for the 100th time now? Mom, so sorry, but the editor-in-chief is calling me into his office, something urgent. He interrupted the woman. I'll visit you this week, okay? Without giving the woman a chance to scold him or to call his consciousness, Alex hung up and exhaled. After hanging up the phone, which had become incredibly hot from talking so long, the man looked longingly at the duration of the call. 32 minutes. Alexander sighed heavily again. He leaned back in his office chair, rubbing his face and tired eyelids. Alex, did your mom call again? His colleague, Abigail, immediately reacted to the heavy sighs, looking up from behind her monitor and giving the man a mocking look. Alex, please, not like last time. Send your news to me first. I'll check it before you upload it to the website. I'm not kidding. Don't make the same mistakes again. His colleague offered to help. Alex gave her a pouty look, but he didn't refuse Abigail's offer. It was definitely good to send her the news and let her look at it with a fresh eye. The fact was that Alexander worked as a journalist and editor at the online news portal. His duties included finding and writing relevant news. Besides topical subjects, he was also engaged in writing economic opinion pieces, which he sincerely loved. But it is not easy to describe the city's latest news when you are constantly distracted by phone calls. Thus, typos and unacceptable mistakes began to creep into the journalist's text, which then turned into fines. And once, after another mother's hysterics such as, "You have completely forgotten me," and "Did not even congratulate me on my professional holiday. How dare you? I raised you." The man made a huge mistake. The text included the address and real name of the witness to the crime, which was considered the distribution of personal data and could lead to criminal charges. Of course, the news was removed from the website immediately, but it had time to go viral on other internet resources. They even had to involve the police, but luckily, nothing happened. Alexander looked around the office with a gloomy look. 5 more employees were working in front of the monitors beside him. The editorial office was small and looked like a studio apartment. Journalists sat next to each other, most often wearing headphones so as not to disturb others' work. Therefore, of all those present, only Abigail heard Alex's conversation with his mother. She was the one with whom the man was in close, even friendly relations. He had always liked the pretty blue-eyed girl. "Look, it's none of my business, but maybe you really don't pay attention to her," the girl asked when Alex sent her the news. "Old people are lonely, and they appreciate it when you call or send them text all the time." "If only that were true, Abigail," Alex said. "My mother feels some kind of catastrophic, unhealthy lack of attention. I think only a therapist could figure out what she wants from me. She calls me 5 times a day, in the morning, at work, and in the evening. She constantly demands my presence in her life. And she lives a bit far, by the way. She lives out of the city." "Yeah, with our traffic, it's a long drive out of the city. Where do you live now?" A colleague supported their conversation. "I got a mortgage to buy an apartment on the next street, right next to the office. The only thing is, how can I pay the mortgage if I'm about to be fined every day?" the man shared. Feeling his throat dry, Alex picked up a mug and got up to pour water into it. Along the way, the man didn't stop sharing his worries with Abigail. "It's not like she's just calling. She always pleads for sympathy. She says she has no one else to live for. She's lost the meaning of everything. She only sees it in me," the man said as he poured water. "And she wants to have grandchildren. Can you imagine? But where to get them? If even during my last date with a girl, I was forced to interrupt the date, leave the girl alone, and go to my mother out of town. What do you think? Why?" To change the light bulbs in the hallway. And she called that night and didn't really explain anything. I thought she had a flood, or even a heart attack. And there was just a light bulb. And what did she need the light for at 9 at night when she goes to bed? The journalist took a few greedy sips, wiped his mouth with his hand, and turned sharply to his colleague. "Don't think that I don't appear in her life," he declared. "I visit her at least once a week after work, and once on holidays if there are no force majeure situations. I always help her. I fill her fridge with groceries, and we go to different events together as often as possible. I mean, isn't that enough?" Abigail shrugged, considering the question rhetorical. Though working side by side with Alexander, she could see how often his mother called her son. In such an atmosphere, it was difficult to work and build a personal life. For example, Alex did not notice her, Abigail, and she, by the way, tried so hard. She treats him with homemade pastries or helps him with his work. And then it turns out he goes on dates. "You're her only child, right?" Abigail clarified dejectedly. "Yeah, and my dad passed away 5 years ago. She is elderly now. She gave birth to me quite late," Alex replied. "I don't even know what to advise you," the girl admitted frankly, flicking her fingers on the keyboard. "Try talking to her. Explain the situation. By the way, I sent you the news. Upload it." "Thank you," the man replied to everything at once. He knew perfectly well, though, that talking to his mother was useless. She would just give him a judgmental look and start a long story about how she had stayed up nights because of him when he was a baby. And now, he couldn't find time for his own mother in his busy schedule. And the problem was not time. Alex could find the time. The problem was that Agnes, Alex's mother, wanted to have absolutely every minute of her son's life. Alex tried to distract himself from his thoughts by dividing headlong into his work. Today, He had to skip lunch because he couldn't keep up with a daily plan of 25 articles per news day. When it was just minutes before the end of the day, and Abigail was already had time to turn off the monitor, Alex's smartphone rang again. The man frowned at the screen, but the number was unfamiliar to him. Hello. He pressed the phone to his ear with his shoulder, quickly finishing off the rest of his work. Alex, the concerned voice said. It's your mom's neighbor, Gina. Do you remember me? Gina, the neighbor from the 3rd floor, the guy remembered her well. After all, he had lived in that building for 20 years. She and his mother had been close friends, visiting each other for tea and baking pies together. But why would she call him? He didn't understand. Yes, Gina, hello, the man replied. Anything happened? Gina sighed heavily. Alex, I have to tell you. Your mother was found lying on the floor today. She had a heart attack. She went out to the store and it was such a disaster. She fell right on my stairwell. Luckily, I came out in time and called for an emergency. The doctors came, examined her, and gave her an injection. But now, the problem is that Agnes is still very weak and bedridden. She cannot get up at all. The doctor said to look after her and help her. I will help as much as I can, but you also have to take care of your mother. The neighbor told him the news, which shocked the man. Wait, tried to grasp the meaning of the woman's words. Alex, but we talked over the phone this morning. Everything was fine. This happened not long ago. Gina examined. I left her 5 minutes ago. I stayed with her for a while after the doctors left to make sure she was okay. But why didn't my mother call me herself? He kept asking. Well, I asked the same thing. But Agnes said you had a lot of work to do, that you had no free time at all, and she didn't want to distract you. And she didn't want you to worry about her. But I couldn't resist calling you and telling you everything, Gina answered. There was some reproach in her tone. You did everything right. Alexander praised his vigilant friend. Thank you. I'll be there soon. Certainly, the man was concerned about his mother's condition, but he also wondered, how is it possible that his mother decided not to bother her son with a phone call? But then, the man began to think. Maybe she was offended that he had interrupted the conversation this morning, so she didn't call now. That's how it happens. First, you do not have enough time for your loved ones. You get angry at them. And then, you go to visit them in the hospital or even in the cemetery, and then you shed a tear. Realizing that his thoughts had become quite gloomy and led the man in the wrong direction, Alex turned off the computer and left the office. He arrived at his mother's house, went up to the 4th floor, and opened the door with his key. He found his mother on the bed in her bedroom. She was asleep in front with the TV on. There was a glass of water and medicine on the stool next to the woman, which she used as a nightstand. On noticing her guest, the woman awoke, and the drowsiness vanished from her face. Alex, why are you here? She wondered. Gina called me and told me you were feeling unwell. What happened? Her son sat down on the bed. The woman sparingly talked about her health. It turned out that her heart was already fine, but Mom had fallen badly, and now she had to stay in bed. I didn't even really understand what the doctor said. But don't worry, I'll spend a week or 2 in bed, and then I'll feel better. She tried to reassure her son. Let me hire a nurse for you, okay? She'll help you, Alex suggested. No need. Gina will help me. The woman waved her hand, denying the idea. No matter how much her son tried to persuade his mother to accept professional help, she flatly refused. After that incident, Alexander began to visit his mother every evening. He would bring her groceries and cook for her, and then he sat by her side, watching her favorite shows and silly soap operas that made him sleepy. The woman was not getting any better. She was still bedridden and complained of the damn disease that had twisted her. Why don't I call a doctor? Suggested Alex after a week and a half. Dear, don't worry about me. I'll call a doctor myself if it doesn't get better. Mom promised. 2 weeks passed. Alex was exhausted from such a schedule, but he couldn't neglect his mother either. He felt guilty for her. When he arrived at her apartment on Tuesday and looked in the refrigerator, he was surprised. "Mom, you have a good appetite," he praised, but then frowned. "Too good. I brought so much groceries the day before, cooked so much, and here the shelves were already empty." The mother smiled at her son, adjusting the blanket on her lap. "Yes, Gina visited me today. We had breakfast and lunch with her. It's more fun together." The man nodded in agreement. Had already forgotten about the scene until he left his mother's apartment. He was coming down the stairs and Gina was coming up. Seeing Alexander, the woman smiled. "Hello, Alex. Are you coming from your mother?" "Yes, Gina." He smiled at her cheerfully. "That's good. That's very good." The older woman nodded. "I was busy all day today. I went to visit my granddaughter. I didn't even have time to see Agnes." At first, Alexander paid no attention to Gina's words. They exchanged a few phrases and said goodbye. Only when he left the building and went to his car did Alex think about it. Mom said Gina had been at her place all day, but Gina hadn't been in town today. But where was the food missing that his mom said they ate together throughout the day? The situation seemed strange to him. There was no reason for his mother to lie. It did not fit with what she had said. On Wednesday, Alex's frown and brooding were noticed by Abigail. "Alex, what's wrong with you again? You've become so pale and nervous," Abigail asked. Alex immediately told his colleague about what was going on in his life. Abigail chewed on the tip of her pen, deep in thought. "What's your mom's diagnosis?" the journalist asked. "I have no idea," Alex admitted. And indeed, his mother did not tell him what her diagnosis was. All she said was that she could not walk, and he was so busy working and taking care of her that he forgot to turn on his brain. "Look, why don't you put a camera in your mom's apartment? That way, you'll know what's going on there and where the groceries are going. You know, maybe someone's hurting her and stealing food. And maybe even her neighbor. And she is afraid to tell the truth, or she's embarrassed," suggested a colleague. At first, the idea seemed strange to the man. He was not in a spy movie to put a hidden camera in his mother's kitchen. However, when his mother's stories became more alarming, he decided to take a desperate step. When he arrived to cook dinner for his mother, the camera had already been purchased. The tiny camera fits easily on the shelf, between the jars of cereal that were rarely used in cooking. The camera was connected to the journalist's laptop through a special application. When he opened the laptop the next day and launched the application, the man was speechless by what he saw. The image was not very clear. What can you expect from an inexpensive model of a device? However, it showed his mother miraculously walking. In the morning, she went to the refrigerator in a businesslike manner, examining its contents. Taking out the sandwiches, his mother made tea, then watered her favorite orchids. A little later, at lunchtime, a neighbor appeared on the video as well. They really had lunch together, eating steaks cooked by Alex. Then they switched to tea and cookies. The only thing was, Gina was not only aware of the cunning mother's excellent health, but she was in cahoots with her. The man was angry. "Don't be so hysterical. After all, she is your mother. She probably did what she did and tricked not out of malice, but out of great love." Abigail tried to cool the man's ardor when she learned of what had happened. "What a great motherly love it is to deceive your son," Alex muttered indignantly. "I don't know. I didn't have a mother at all," the woman pointed out. Then, Alex thought back to the fact that his colleague had been raised by her grandparents who were no longer alive. This did make him come to his senses a little bit. However, the same night, Alexander forced his mother to confess everything. It turned out that there had been no emergency. Everything had been invented by his mother herself in order to see her son around more often. No matter how angry Alex was then, he did not tear up his relationship with his mother. He remembered the look on Abigail's face when she told him she didn't have a mother at all. He also remembered that he had given his mother a lot of trouble himself when he was young, and how many lies he told when he was young and stupid he couldn't count. Alexander then had a serious talk with his mother, strictly telling her to learn to see the limits, to draw a line. "Mom, I never forget you," he confessed honestly. "I love you and I will be there for you, but not every single day. Do you understand?" The woman sobbed and nodded. Alexander hugged his mother, comfortingly stroking her back. "I'll visit you more often. There's nothing to cry about," he promised. "Don't make up any more silly stories. I'm getting worried." Alex kept his promise, and so did his mother. Now, Agnes didn't distract him with phone calls and spent more time with her friend. She found hobbies and activities she liked. Her son visited her often and happily because he did it sincerely, not under compulsion. And one day, he took home a modest, smiling young woman. "Mom, this is Abigail." Her son introduced her. "She's my girlfriend." "It's nice to meet you. Alex has told me a lot about you." Abigail's eyes sparked slyly at those words. "Only good things, I hope." The woman grinned, fussily inviting her guest into the kitchen, which smelled of fresh, homemade cookies. "Only good." The girl nodded, discreetly poking her boyfriend in the side. "You can rest assured." Dear viewers, thanks for watching this video. Share your impression in the comment section. If you enjoy what we do, please subscribe to the channel, like, and watch our other videos.